I'm ready, Laura. We're not on the big TV today?
No.
Okay. 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 Usually you give me the nod. So welcome to the regular council meeting for November 15th of 2022. It's just past 1 o'clock and I'd like to call meeting to order. So we have a number of late additions to the agenda. The first addition I'll ask Councillor Phillips to.
Yes, I'd like to make an addition under item 7.3. And we can call it the Kamakawa 2024 conference.
Thank you very much. So we'll add that item to the agenda under 7.3. And I believe Councillor Hutchinson has 2 items to add to the agenda.
So under 7.4 new business, I would like to just add briefing notes for new counselor.
Okay,
And under 14.1 closed session, discussion, clarification of code of conduct sanctions under section 17.
disclosure to personal privacy. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Any other additions or changes to today's agenda? Seeing none, we need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
I will make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Right?
Yes.
Yes, sorry. Just, you were very quick and I wasn't. Okay, so perfect. So this morning we are lucky enough to have a delegation from the Rocky Public Library from Ben Worth and Mimi Cole. Welcome, please come forward and you press the middle button. It turns the microphones on so we can all hear you clearly. Thank you and welcome.
So just want to thank our mayor and councillors for inviting us here today to present our budget. We think the library is important and we hope that you do too. I guess I would just want to thank you for your time and listening to us on this, and just want to point out a few things why we feel the library is so important. It's a free space for people to meet and get together and share ideas. And we try and make it as inclusive as possible. That means everyone, not just one group or another. We have reliable, high-speed internet available for, again, anyone to come in and use. Free entertainment. You can read a book, you can access DVDs. Again, you can access games on the internet. There's all kinds of things that the library, and I am amazed at how much more technology is expanding all the time and how much more there is that the library offers. It's great. It's really, and it doesn't cost anything. So that's awesome. And also for people looking for jobs, it's a great resource for coming in and helping them write resumes, accessing sites where they're looking for specific jobs and doing some upgrades. They can do a lot of their upgrades online. So.
Yeah, so of course, Mimi as library board chair and myself as library manager are here to answer any questions you may have about the 2023 budget we've presented and our funding request. So yeah, just let us know if you have any questions and we'd be happy to elaborate on.
Absolutely. I see Councillor Phillips already has a question or a comment.
I'm on the library board, so I'm a little more familiar with the budget process and how we came up with this. A couple of things I just wanted to point out are the materials line that we have increased, because the materials over the last number of years have been decreased down to almost nothing. And that was to try and get the the previous budgets, more attainable. So that's one thing. And also one other thing of note is the overdue fees. If you notice, there's a budget. Well, there's a budget of 0 for 2023. And the reason for that being is the Parkland Regional Library System is not charging for overdue fees at this point, and we don't know when that's going to correct itself and start again. That's correct.
They did recently reinstate overdue
Okay.
fines. So further to that point, the rationale for that budget line being 0 for 2023 was over the course of the pandemic, with the 50 various libraries that are all part of the Parkland library system, they were all addressing shutdowns and various, all these different things in different ways, and they all operate on different hours depending on the size of their staff, their community. So with all those irregularities, Parkland looked at the system overall and said, if you return something on a due date to this library, that's not going to have anyone touching it for a week. It could be several more weeks before it gets to its own location. It's not practical for that to be accruing overdue fines during that time with all those irregularities. So outside of any individual library's control, Parkland shut down overdue fees. So that having been the case off and on over the past 2 years, we looked at that revenue line for operating costs and said, this is incredibly unreliable if we're trying to budget this much money for something that's that much out of our control. Then the other kind of point to that is that revenue line is entirely dependent on our community members, our users, doing what we encourage them not to do, which makes it also a little tricky. Is like we would like people to return their items, when they're due, so that they're available for other community members to use. And if they don't, fines will accumulate. But again, that's where it's another thing where the message we're sending out is contrary to us depending on that as a source of operating expense. And so it just, again, makes it very unreliable.
So do you foresee that line item? So I have 2 questions about that line item. So number one, just because you budget for it doesn't mean that's what actually ever happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Is 5,500 an accurate amount of how much late fees that our library actually acquired over a year?
Pre-pandemic, more or less, we would see, it around that amount. Yeah.
Okay. And then so now my follow-up question is that, do you foresee that being put back into the budget? Because now we're hopefully not going to see closures and irregularities in the 2023 year.
Yeah,
Would
for
think
sure.
So I would
Yeah.
think so, Debbie. It's again, it's just been a couple of weird years, and I think
Absolutely.
going forward, certainly, because we'll see that revenue. If that's what it was pre-pandemic, we'll certainly see that again. And so we will have an actual amount to go by.
Perfect, because that was one of my items I highlighted, because it's a large revenue amount, and I had questions of why it was removed. If sometimes you have an item in a budget, just because it's in the budget doesn't mean that actually translates through, right, for whatever reason. So did you have more items that you wanted to
No, that was the 2 kind of highlights, the overdue fees and of course materials. And over the last couple of years, basically because there's not money there to get materials, there has not been a lot of new materials brought in through the library itself. That's been relied upon the Parkland system to be able to continue doing that. So I just wanted to, just because there's probably questions on those 2 line items, just to make sure that everyone's aware that's why those 2 line items are like that.
Yeah, because the materials expense, that was another one that I had questions over. It looks like, last year and the year before, it was down to like almost 1,000, and now it's up to 4,000, almost back to what year's line C, back to 2020 and 2019. And that's just because you've set that
adjusted it.
aside.
We've
Yeah,
adjusted it to
Yeah.
pre-pandemic levels.
okay, and so that's more of a normal budget line item back to pre-COVID.
It's a little low still. It's
Okay,
still a little bit low, and especially as we realize costs have increased.
right.
You know, it is low, but it was really difficult to look at it and say, we want to make a huge increase because we don't know. You know, we need almost a full year of fully operational operations going forward, being open and to know exactly, but we would like it to be at least be back to pre-pandemic. As I said, it was low, but
Yeah, it's increased, you know, it's a step towards the materials budget that we saw back in 2020, not all the way up there, but you know, with other considerations in the coming year's budget and other expense increases, you know, we felt this was a good place to get it to.
Not that I'm trying to criticize your
Oh,
excellent budgeting
Oh,
skills.
yeah.
It's just that when you're asking for like a significant amount that we have to share with the
certainly.
county, then I'm trying to drill down to, you know, like where maybe the community could step up.
Certainly.
You know, because we certainly are seeing some downloads on our end of things, and our process is going to be next. And so it's going to be really hard to say yes to everybody who's having this similar budget
Yeah, sure.
issues and then put that onto the ratepayers. So just trying to, I had another question was movie passes. Is that the Wednesday night where you buy the movie passes and then they have a special event? It's down significantly from every year. It's
Yes.
on line 37.
Yeah, so that is revenue from the library's Showcase Cinema film series through Toronto International Film Festival. Yeah, so the second Wednesday of each month from September through April, we'll hold a special screening for a limited release film at Rocky Cinemas. So the reason why movie passes specifically is so much lower than previous years, that's again just based on conditions over the past 2 years where, of course, you know, people going out to the cinema was limited, and also, you know, because of all those, you know, restrictions and everything that happened the past 2 years, like Showcase Cinema has returned and it's back, but it's going to take a little bit of time to build momentum back up to, you know, the kind of attendance numbers we are seeing. So we are, you know, the 3 films we've held so far this year have been fairly well attended. So that, you know, that revenue line is line 36, single seat sales. The movie passes are at the actual season passes that we would also typically sell. So that amount is lower just because we're just reluctant to start selling those before fall 2023.
I see.
Just because of that reluctance of some of our community members. You know, a lot of the audience we get out to that event is more senior community members.
Right.
You know, we find are a bit more cautious in
No,
that respect.
I just am asking because on your item, it was 4,500, 4,500, 4,500, but that might not be a true actual amount. That could have been just a budgeted amount.
Yeah, as for the
Right?
last 2 years, yeah, that's not accurate to the actual
Okay.
revenue we saw.
Yeah, so that's what I was just wondering if those weren't accurate, then of course your
Yeah.
2,000 might be just an accuracy. You're gonna get more to what it's accurately like.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. What is line 78? As it goes up 5,000, it's 1,000 every year.
Sorry, line 78.
Yeah,
Oh, that is a contract fee that the library pays to the town for payroll services that the town conducts on our behalf.
and why has that gone up $5,000?
That price increase is based on a conversation with town administration on adjusting that price to actually better reflect the actual cost of providing that
cost.
service to us.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Counselor Hutchinson.
On the registration fees, so 2019 was the last time they were collected.
Yes.
So that was the amount of $12,000. What's the direction the library's going?
Which line are you on, Tina?
Line 19. Under revenue.
Yep.
And what's the direction of, will you be implementing registration fees again, or what are your thoughts with that?
So registration fees, that represents an actual charge that community members were paying to have a library card, to have a membership with our library. So for several years before 2019, that was a matter of discussion on the board as to is there a way to eliminate that? Because Alberta as a whole was a bit of an anomaly. Outside of Alberta, public libraries in Canada do not charge any memberships for their community members to have a library card, access to library materials. By 2019, when we were preparing the following year's budget, we were looking at that, like the trend even within Alberta was at that time that over half of libraries had made the decision to eliminate that, so that they can expand access to public libraries to everyone in the community. And the charge for those individual cards was, not a lot. At the time, we charged $10 for an adult card, which for a lot of people, it's not a lot, but to those that it is a barrier, we wanted to eliminate that barrier just to ensure that our library was accessible to everyone in the community. So as far as going forward, we have not discussed any plans to reinstate a membership fee for library access.
And seeking to find other sources of revenue as far as donations from corporate. And looking at some of those options instead, so that we can continue to provide that service again with no barriers to anyone within the community.
Thank you.
Counselor Boniface.
Line 111, your waste management has dropped considerably, $960. How are you managing to handle your waste at such a reduced amount?
So the reason for the significant reductions are twofold. One, we changed service providers, just getting a significantly better rate for our bi-monthly waste pickup. And the other change, up until last year, we were sharing that cost between us and the fire hall, using the same dumpster. And then last year, our neighbors at the denture clinic approached us to ask if they could be included in sharing that cost. So we're now splitting that expense between the three of us.
Well done.
Yep.
And it seems to work. And it seems to
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
We're not filling the dumpster, so.
Yep.
My last question was, your licenses and fees went from $500 to $2,100. Is that just a change to more accurate, or is there something that has significantly increased? It's on line 86.
So that is in part to reflect a combination of that with computer software expenses. Because a lot of the software we're not actually
Check mark.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of software, it's not an outright purchase, it's just an ongoing monthly license fee. So that's in part of it. Another reason for the increase to that budget line is just additional software that we've started using at the library, in part because of the past 2 years having more software so we can more easily engage with the community through remote services. Like one we've started using this year is called Beanstack, which allows community members to engage in monthly reading challenges and our summer reading club through an app, so that whether they can come in or not, they can still kind of participate in those different activities. Yeah.
Good. I think you have a great budget, very, very hard to do a budget these days with increasing costs, and I just want to commend you on your hard work and being able to answer all our questions so easily. Thank you so much. Did anybody else have any questions about the budget?
Well, thank you so much for your time and for, going over our budget, looking at it and contemplating it. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Libraries are very important. Other things come and go, but libraries have been around for hundreds of years, so.
With Christmas coming and all donations, you accept community donations and give tax receipts?
Yeah, the library,
Let's put a plug in for that.
Okay, no, that's a good idea. Thank you very much.
we are a registered charity, so we do provide tax receipts for any donations of $20 or more.
And do you accept good quality read books?
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah, we
Absolutely.
get material donations frequently, and we assess them for either adding to the collection, or if we already have several copies, we put them on a sale table or find other homes for them.
The little free libraries around the community, if you've seen them, and those get well used.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate all your time today,
Yeah,
and have a great afternoon, and thank you so much again.
yeah, thank you all. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so I'll just start then.
Yes.
I think you all got the pamphlets, right?
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Candace Stradecki. I'm currently the chair of the Clearwater Regional Housing Foundation, and with me is Cindy Easton, who I think you all know. And with us actually is Janice Fraser. So I'll get to why Janice is here in a couple minutes. So I'm just wondering if you would like me to go through this slide deck, or if you would like just kind of details, or if you have questions, because some of this information I think is a bit of a review from what we've shared prior. Just
So you can use your time as you see fit.
Okay.
If you would
So-
like to put out there, kind of what's the most important,
okay, because I'm also just cognizant of what you might have already read and be
Right.
like, okay, we've heard this. So I just want to talk with our current activities then. So we have been connecting with the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation for funding to look at building a homeless and transitional housing village. You will have seen some schematics attached for that as well. We have also worked to develop a business plan to operate this kind of transitional village, as well as a homeless shelter. What is really kind of exciting for us is that right now we are in the process of beginning a community consultation for what we are calling the Tamarack Transit System. So in the fall, myself and Andrea Vasallo actually completed an application to the federal government, and we have received $50,000 in funding from that to look at developing a rural transportation program. That is why we have Janice. Janice was the successful candidate to head that project, so we will be working hopefully with everyone in the town as well as with the county. So obviously we have to follow the design of what that program looks like under the federal government. So you will probably be hearing more from Janice actually as we move forward. We have a year to complete that program, and the end result, we hope, is that we will be moving to the second stage of that funding program, and that we will have a rural transportation program that will support the town of Rocky Mountain House as well as Clearwater County, including Nordegg and some other of our kind of major hubs where people live. Okay. So our next steps, just in terms of the Community Housing Transformation Center grant, that is the work we're doing with the CMHC currently. And then we are also working with them around the Rapid Housing Initiative, which would be a capital grant, which again leads us to kind of like, so we have capital, but then we need to look at operating. And so you might see a bit more work from us around that. So going sort of into the schematics, for some reason, my print off looks different than yours.
Because I did mine on, so I didn't use so much paper.
Okay.
Cheap.
I think you would have seen in the slide deck, part of what we were hoping to have, because we did discuss this, I think the last time we had a delegation here, is that we're really hoping to have somebody from town council also sit with us and talk about the development of what that homelessness and transitional housing program would look like, that we would like to really work in partnership with that. And then also that, because this schematic we have, I think in the past you will have seen, right, that we have gone to various different locations in town. And in terms of the capital grants, it was really too onerous in terms of the cost allocations to be able to refurbish buildings. So at this point, we have gone throughout the community and we've looked at different locations where we may be able to purchase land or build a building that would meet the needs of this kind of project. And so I think what we would like to talk about at some point in the near future is being able to have some of that land contributed through the town, as well as in partnership then with the county to cost share. Because what that allows us to do then is say, when we're applying for those grants, that we have already this much put towards the project and that there is a buy-in. I think maybe what's relevant and hasn't been shared, and maybe some of you have seen this, is that very recently in the news, so this would be like in the Calgary Herald or the Lethbridge publications, that we have now cost of living analyses that have been developed very recently for Alberta. And so why this is becoming sort of, I think, even more important than what we've seen. As we all know, COVID kind of changed the landscape around a number of things. The cost of living increases and inflation have worsened some things for people. So the most recent data, because we have Rocky Mountain House included in those lists, is that for a person to just have a moderate lifestyle, they need to make $21.85 an hour to live in Rocky. And we know that our minimum wage is $15. So when we look at what people need to make versus what they're achieving, and we look at that deficit, part of the reason for having programs such as this is to address that social need and look at some of the offset. I think our research would indicate that for us as a community, so including the town and the county, this meets a social need, but it also can be an economic driver. And so we have research that would indicate that, would support that. And so we're just really hoping that whomever it is that joins us in working forward on this project would also kind of share that passion for like growing our community, looking at how do we support people that live here and how do we keep our community vibrant, right? So that would be kind of like the encapsulation of what I would like to say in my time.
No pressure.
Not at all.
So I have a little question about how that project becomes an economic driver. Is it because then with subsidized housing, like, so explain how it becomes an economic driver.
So the transit program,
No, your housing
Oh,
project.
so for us, when we look at the housing project, there's a couple of reasons. So first of all, it's the idea that when you staff a program like that, because the staffing model, of course, has to meet certain licensing requirements. So what that means is that those people who are living here and working there are contributing to our tax base. They are buying local supplies. That program will also be buying local supplies in order to do that. We know over the last 3 years that we have roughly 30 to 40 people that were using the warming shelter and who we would consider unique individuals, right? Certainly in my day-to-day work at the hospital, I see some of those folks on a very regular basis. And so we know that by them being here and others being able to support them, that supports our tax base. We also know that when we move to transitional housing, that those folks then are coming back into our community. I'm not going to say rehabilitated, but contributing to the best that they can. And so then sometimes that's employed. Again, they're contributing to that tax base and they are then staying here. If we're going to invest in people, we want that investment to stay within our community, right? So that's how I see that as being an economic driver. I think the other thing that we need to be cognizant of when we're doing planning for our communities is that when we look at what are the supports available to people? So if we are trying to draw people to come to our community, what are the things that they're going to look at? So if we have something that supports those who are vulnerable, that tends to draw people to come to the community because it means that there's more cohesiveness in the community. There's support for people when they need it. It means that we have more cohesiveness in terms of our social support structure. So those things are all important when people are considering moving to a community. We want to talk about the transit system. So I'm sure that you all know that there are other kind of, I would say, comparable communities in terms of demographics within Alberta, and they have, some of them have transit systems. So one of those would, for example, be the Roam buses that run from Canmore to Banff and back. And the reason that I kind of go to that one is because we have a similar sort of dynamic, and I think all of us would know since the flood in 2013 that saw traffic being diverted and coming more so through our community, and B, since COVID, the West Country has exploded. And this is an opportunity for us to be able to capitalize on that and do that well if we plan accordingly. So when we look at the Roam bus, for example, it is possible for people to park in Rocky Mountain House, get on a bus very similar, go out to Nordegg, do whatever it is they're going to do, and then come back. So it reduces the traffic on the road. It reduces the congestion in Nordegg. It draws people into our community. And it means that there's those spin-off things, because we know for a lot of people when they park, then they're going to run to the gas station and they're going to buy like chips or a drink or whatever for the ride home. Or conversely, that if they're in Nordegg, they're going to go to the pub for a drink after they've been done hiking or mountain biking, get back on the bus, be safe. And then by the time they get back, they're able to drive home. The idea with that is that we look at the systems that when we say that it's subsidized, other areas might be subsidized, but because of what we're able to do with that kind of market. And then again, I think when we look at, I think a few of us have had experience where we can say that we have some transportation programs in Rocky Mountain House, but those aren't necessarily accessible to everyone. And their timing is quite limited. And they're also, in a lot of ways, reliant upon volunteers. And so that's not sustainable in the long run. There's a whole number of reasons for that, which we don't have enough time for. But in terms of economic drivers, that's just the highlights. So I just personally, I'm very excited about this program. I believe that we have the ability to make this something that really gets us ahead of some of that planning. I think for people who have been in Alberta for a while, I certainly can speak to when I lived in Calgary for university. Canmore was a little sleepy town like this, and all of a sudden it exploded, and the people who lived there and were local kind of lost control. And so this is a way, I think, for us to have some of that pre-planning in place and really be able to have some control over what we have in terms of economic gains within our community. So Does that answer your question?
It answered it right away. I just had it on the first. So, just because that grabbed my attention.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So you still have time. Did you want to have,
I was gonna say Cindy or Janice might want to say something because I was like,
yeah, and then we'll do, unless you have a question that you wanted to ask now and we'll,
I have a couple questions if I may then.
yeah.
You're talking about a transit system to Nordig, which is commendable. But will you also be going to Red Deer? Because I mean, honestly, to go to Nordig, if you get dumped off in a bus in Nordig to get to anything that you might want to hike, it's a hike. So, so like, are you going to be going to Red Deer? So if people needed to go to a doctor's appointment and those kind of things?
To be
if you looked at
truthful, and I'm gonna speak to this one, to be truthful, we don't know.
and that's the purpose of the
And that's what the grant
consultations.
is. So this is a research grant. It's not to do this. And I've been in this town now for 11
decade.
years, yeah, a decade. And when I started and I went to the first interagency meeting, the conversation around the table was, we need transportation. Our clients need transportation. The seniors need transportation. So the result of that was all the not-for-profits went out and bought their own vehicle. Which, okay, that helps the people I work with, but it doesn't help the senior population. And we've always talked about there needs to be something, and I've come to town council and county council many times saying, what are we doing with transportation? This is a need. So we did speak to county and to town when this grant came out and said, can we partner? Can we do something so that we can pull all of the communities in Clearwater County? So Nordig, Caroline, Condor, Leslieville, all of those areas, let's pull them together and have a conversation. Of course, that's why we're asking to have town council, somebody be appointed to work with our steering committee on this project. When we're said and done, so I think the reports will come out probably August, September. All of those community consultations would be pulled together. That's what Janice's position is to facilitate this. And then we'll have a really, really good idea of what our community wants for a transit system. Do I think it'll be going to Red Deer? Probably. But right now, it's not us to decide, even though we're hosting the grant. It's going to be community driven. Then we're going to come back to council and town and county council, and we're going to say, here's the results. Now, how do we move forward? The second part of this grant is actually a capital grant from the federal government to enact whatever your plan is, whatever that looks like. So is it buying electric vehicles? I don't know what the plan's going to be, but it's to work then again with the municipal levels in our community to actually bring something forward. But right now, this is research. So when people say, well, what do you think it's going to look like? I'm like, I don't know, because it's going to be a community driven project. So I really don't know. So I think the important thing is that we have someone from town council participate in this project.
Can I just say as a second to your question though, part of those consultations, and it's written into the grant proposal, that we will also be consulting with Sunchild, Ochese,
Yeah.
and Bighorn.
So that was my next question to
Yeah.
you. Are you also going to ask them for funds?
On what? For the
You're looking
research grant?
You're looking, I mean, you're also looking at building I'll say, transitional housing and that kind of thing. This is part of your presentation to us. You've already said you spoke to the county. Will you also be speaking to the Indigenous communities?
Certainly around the transportation. I don't think we're there yet around the homeless shelter. But I don't think we're opposed to that either.
I think it would be a very good
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
to involve them
Yeah.
and with their funds.
Yep.
It was part of the application.
Yeah.
Formally.
Yeah, for the transit system.
Yeah.
So and we're also requesting that town council appoint a member to come and sit on our committee for the homeless and transitional housing village that we're working on, which you guys have a little artist rendering of. These are two separate projects. They are falling under Clearwater Regional Housing Foundation. So that's why we kind of combine them. And our last request as we move forward, and we'll be coming back more and more is to work with the town to see if there is land that can be possibly donated or some kind of deal that we can make with county and town where land will be contributed to this project. We are talking to county council in
Next week.
next week, the
22nd.
22nd, and we will be approaching them as well to try to build some kind of partnership. The grants that are available in the Rapid Housing Initiative, we have to come forward and say, this is what we have as buy-in. And part of that is, what is your capital contribution to this? Well, if we can have this land donated or somewhere that we can say, okay, Clearwater Regional Housing Foundation now has a piece of property, we're paying tax on it. This is where we're gonna build our village. And so they will take that into consideration. But right now, Clearwater Regional Housing Foundation has been around for 6 years. We're slowly building up our repertoire. But we can't go get a mortgage to buy a piece of land right now, right? Like, so, because we are zero government funded right now, we only get grants. And if we don't have a grant, that's why, well, you're one of our first employees, right? Right, like, and it's part-time.
For 1 year.
For 1 year, yeah. So that's kind of, as a new not-for-profit organization, that's kind of where we are, right? So, yeah.
So I would, just before we go to more questions, I'd really like to know, did you have anything more to say, like, about the projects, you know, and then we'll go to questions some more.
It will be really exciting to work with the council here at Rocky Mountain House to figure out where we can meet those needs and vision what we want for the city and for the whole county. So like, really, this is a project to design and plan a vision that's long-term and will meet the needs of all of us. That's my hope. And I'm just new. I started a week ago. So, so just really happy to sit in and meet and greet with you.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Councillor Phillips had some questions.
Just a question, it may be premature and you may not have the answer for this yet, but for the transitional housing village, what size of a footprint would you anticipate that?
We did send out a schematic, but we've worked with JMA architects out of
Yeah.
Red Deer. And they've done a schematic, so there is kind of a nice picture of the front. To be truthful, I can tell you exactly
Yeah.
a piece of property that we like. So I know the town owns those 3 lots that are out across the street, kind of from Sobeys and past the giant truck wash.
Mhm.
There's 3 pieces there. The one right at the end against the trees, we would love that one. That would be perfect. I know it's for sale for $190,000. Done my homework. And it would be ideal. It's not going to have NIMBY, right? Because, you know, even the women's shelter, when we built the women's shelter, there was a lot of not in my backyard in the location that we were at or that we ended up building at. But yet it's close to resources. And our plan is it would be a 24/7 homeless shelter. So there would be mats, but we would run day programs. We would have a nurse on staff for people impacted with substance use disorders. But then we would have the transitional housing unit where you kind of graduate and you live in this unit. I think there's 6 beds,
Yeah.
7 beds.
Yeah.
And so that would be the main building. And then down the road, we actually have a space to build 5 tiny homes where people could live there permanently in their tiny home. So even with that plan, like the main building would be phase 1, tiny homes would be phase 2. So I think that property that we were looking at was 1.2 or
yes.
1.4 acres.
Well, yeah, almost 1.5, somewhere
Yeah.
down there. Okay, that answers my question. What size
Okay.
of property? Just from a town of Rocky Mountain House point of view, we don't own a lot of land, especially, things that size. So it's just a question, just to for further discussion, that's all.
We've looked for a while.
Yeah, we really have.
So, yeah, it says 13, just about 14,000 square feet is the, and then you'd have, offsets to property line
Yeah.
on top of that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have an idea how big that is. Like, so that area that you're suggesting is commercial area. And of course, it wouldn't be not in my backyard, but also it doesn't, would have to have some zoning changes
Mhm.
if there was housing there.
Yeah.
Have you spoke to other community groups like Grandmother Turtle Lodge, who are proposing to put in like a treatment center and partnershiping with them at all?
That's on the reserve.
No, they were gonna do it in town, but it
Okay.
is with, her name escapes me.
Mhm.
That's a shock. I know. But she is from Ochis First Nations.
Yeah.
And
Is
she's
that Deb and Teresa?
Teresa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then her daughter's on council there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, because their proposal, I just think it would be a good fit. And
Mhm.
I'm always concerned, like sometimes capital money, like as well, with the woman shelter. Capital money sometimes is a little bit easier to acquire, but then you have operational money,
Right.
which is really the hard part.
Yes.
Like you said, everybody gave money to buy a van or a bus or a taxi, but then there's no operational money to
Yeah.
to get that to
Right.
work. And so those are my main concerns is operational money.
Yeah.
Because with inflation right now,
Mhm.
we definitely want to help,
Yeah.
every area. But if we make a project that's gonna cause operational funding to be required that we would have to subsidize, then it requires taxes to go up.
Right.
And then inflation goes up.
Yeah.
And so your 2140 is now
Right.
2650
Yeah.
to live in Rocky.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just my concerns.
Yeah.
I certainly would be really interested on Housing Foundation. I know that's one of the reasons why I ran for council
Mhm.
was because I attended your Stone Soup for Housing. And I'm just wondering the shelter that is in downtown Red Deer that spoke at that, is that where your project is based on? Because there's so many different solutions to the same problem
Mhm.
out there today. I
Mhm.
really liked,
Actually, from that, we actually took 3 because the homeless shelter in Red Deer, it has the MAP program, right? Basically, and they open the doors at 7 at night and they ask you to leave at 7 in the morning. But then they also have other programs, like they have a triage site and they have, rapid response to treatment, and they have these different programs under that umbrella. But homelessness is very different than treatment. And not every homeless person has a substance use disorder, right?
correct.
So it would be a partnership, like I think the homeless shelter, the homeless village would certainly partnership with the treatment center. It's kind of like what the women's shelter does now. We partner with treatment centers. We provide services, and we work with people that are impacted with drugs and alcohol use disorder, but we don't provide that treatment. So we have that partnership because it really is different.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be kind of the same with the Turtle Lodge thought, and a homeless shelter.
But also, when we worked with the architect, we talked about what we would need to be able to do, because people who are in Rocky Mountain House, as you've pointed out, don't necessarily have transportation to Red Deer to get to some of those other services. So we then talked about, what do we need to be able to do? Because we don't want people to remain homeless, right? We want people to be able to contribute to the level at which they can. And so how did we get there? And so when we worked with the architect about, this is what we need to be able to do in this space. And then, of course, he gave us information about what you have to meet in terms of licensing or, inspections or that kind of stuff, right? And so that's how we came to the schematic that we have. I can just say that as an aside, like in terms of consultation, we did, a group of us go in February to Edson to see their facility.
Yeah.
And so we have spent quite a bit of time talking with their director. And so we did learn a number of things about what happens when you have transients, which we do see at different times in our community in the year, right? Like depending on the work cycle that we see here, or tourism. I say tourism, but because for some people it's easier to come here and stay, right? And so we did speak with them. And so that also informed some of the discussion with our architect in terms of what that building would need to be able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about their program when I heard about it. So I'm glad that you've
Yeah.
done some research on that.
Yeah.
Counselor Hutchinson.
So yesterday when I was doing the tour and Crystal had sent me the info on the Lego project, and I'll forward that to everybody after. Is this the same building idea? The modular type buildings for the schematic that you've sent in?
No,
No? Okay,
we would not be doing the modular home
okay.
design.
Because is that not what Edson?
No,
Edson has
Edson's,
pods. They're
yeah.
individualized pods
Okay,
that they send people codes to, and they code it in and they sleep in there for the night. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, it's the pods, so it's different. But I'll go back and ask Crystal about the Lego. The one that I was more interested in was the oh, now it's gonna leave my head because I just talked to the guy. Something Alberta, and it's low income housing, but because that's also a thing we need in this community is low income housing. So yeah, I'll have to ask Crystal about that Lego project, but sometimes my staff go rogue. No.
well, she handed the package to Jason Nixon yesterday too.
Oh, cool.
So she was plugging all areas.
I do just want to ask about the Edson project. Do you know what we're talking about? Yes,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Is anybody not familiar with the? You,
know.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think the distinction is that we would be trying to do everything in this one building. Edson works, their program works because literally less than 500 feet down the road, they have a day program and drop-in centers. So they have separated those functions. We would be trying to do that in the same building.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your presentation. You have your asks, and I
Yes.
see no other questions.
Well, I'm just wondering, so we did ask, what would our next step be? Should we follow up to see if someone would like to come and sit on our transit system committee? And then someone else would like to come and sit on our homelessness committee? There's two committees there. So do we follow up with that to see if, I don't know if you guys do your appointing, when's the appointing
So
stuff?
we did that already. So
Yeah.
two things is that we are getting a new member of council, and we will be updating some of our committees
Okay.
to fit that new person into the different committees.
Okay.
And then the question that you're asking is, it has to be a resolution where we discuss as council, because it's a budget item.
Right.
So, because we would get paid to attend that meeting, and we would have to have the merits. Now, we've done that for a couple of the things just recently to make sure that they were on our list, but we did that at the organizational meeting.
Okay.
But would we need a letter with Mr. Coase? Would we need a letter to make that resolution, or it would just be a resolution that we need to discuss? We have budgets coming up, and so a lot of things we're just going to talk budget first. Yeah. Is that
So your worship, we'll be bringing back committees to the December 6th meeting once the new councillors on board, and we could add these to the list for council's discussion.
All right. And then you'll notify us after you do all your stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever that stuff is.
so you will have to supply us with, so we're prepared for that meeting with how often the Housing Foundation Committee meets, like, like
Yeah.
once a month.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff, because obviously if it's during the, like we just had a library, if it's during the same time as the library, then
Okay.
Counselor Phillips wouldn't be able to attend that one
Mhm.
and his library at the same time.
Right.
So how long the meeting is, the frequency, like, and the term. So is it a
Okay.
1 year? Because some of our boards, we need training, like, there was one that's like, just after being on for 1 year, they don't want to change the person off
Right.
because it's a year of training so that you're, able to participate for the next 3 years. So that sort of things on the two boards, if you want to just send an email to administration so that they can have that information when
Okay,
the frequency, the
Yeah.
length.
cool.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah.
And then, as for the land contribution, which we're looking down the road on this, would it be more appropriate for us to put together kind of a plan after we talk to county and we try to pull this together, or would we meet with Mr. Kraus, or how would we do that?
That is definitely a question that it's outside of my ability to answer at this point.
I think, your worship, it'd be better to come back to council with that plan and for council to review.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, and I appreciate all your hard work.
More than our 10 minutes.
Well, if everyone has questions, it's fine.
Oh,
Okay, so that concludes 3.2. So moving forward on the schedule today, we're at 4.1 to adopt the regular council meeting minutes of November 1st, 2022. Is there any additions or deletions to that, those minutes? Seeing none. Counselor Caprero, your name tag's looking at you.
Oh. I'll make a motion to adopt the regular council meeting minutes of November 1st, 2022.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Correct, Counselor Ald? I'm sorry, I just missed you. Okay, so moving forward with delegation business. 5.1 delegation Rocky Public Library. Is that something that we are going to discuss at budget, Mr. Kraus? Is that how we would?
Yeah, so thank you, your worship. So it'd be the council's resolution, basically that council instructed administration to place the library's budget request into our budget discussions.
Okay. Unless, like, we could vote to say that we can't afford that at this point and then not put it on the budget. How does it normally work?
That's an option for council. So really the request is just a requisition to the town. If council feels that is too high, they can ask the library to reduce that amount and bring back a revised budget.
Counselor Phillips.
Having been part of this budget process on the library side, this actually is a reduced amount than what the first request was. The biggest problem has been just the cuts that have been made through COVID years on materials and things like that have just now come to a head and need to be addressed. So my recommendation would be just to take it to budget as is. And then we can discuss it at budget and see how that plays out for the budget process.
I would be, somewhat fine with that. They answered all the questions that I had on their budget, for the, overdue fines, if they come in over budget, do they pay that money back to us or do they keep it and put it in accrual?
No, your worship, I'm pretty sure they put it into reserve. They don't pay us back.
Okay. It's not a lot of money for sure, but when everybody asks for 20 grand, it goes, it becomes it becomes, $1 million rather quickly, if you get 10 people asking for the same thing, so. Would we like to have any further discussion on this agenda item? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we take the Rocky Library Board's presentation and budget and further that to our budget consultations in December.
Thank you very much. I just have one last question. So if that budget, we decide that it's not feasible for us and take it back to them, does it give enough time for them to redo a budget and reconfigure their numbers?
I would think if at that time we went back to the library board and said that we needed to lower the budget, it would require definitely a very quick meeting. They would probably have to do an interim budget temporarily to allow things to keep functioning until a new budget is sorted out. I would think that would be standard for any organization. If we went back and said no to whatever budget is asked, that they would have to then go back, do an interim budget to allow the doors to be open in January until they can have a proper budget.
My concern is we've got a lot of items, and I'm trying to catch Betty's eyes. We've got a lot of items on our budget that have been added for discussion, and we've already got a tight budget with a bunch of downloads that are making things, right? And so I always like to give someone the heads up. We're under a lot of pressure to make our budget work as well. So.
So your worship, just to let council know, so we do have a balanced budget to present to council. That includes the library request.
Okay.
That balanced budget doesn't include some other requests like the Hospice Society, which council will have to discuss. But for this amount for the library, it is in the draft budget and it is balanced.
Okay. So with the motion on the table, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So that concludes 5.1, 5.2. So we just need a resolution to bring it to the December 9th meeting December 6th. And it needs to be a resolution for those two committees to bring it to that December 6th for council's discussion. Would somebody like to make that motion? Councillor Phillips?
I will make a motion that we bring to the December 6th meeting the request for a councillor to attend the Homeless Transitional Housing Village Development Committee and the Transit Committee.
Perfect. Any further discussion on that item? All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Sorry, I'm agenda. So moving forward in the agenda, old business, the RFD for Recreation Master Plan Matrix. And see Wes.
Good afternoon, your worship and council. Bringing this item forward, it was presented to council at our service level review. That will bring it back today to present to the public. I'll just do a little bit of a summary in regards to the Recreation Master Plan, which was completed in 2017 to assist in guiding the town and prioritizing its investments in recreation amenities. And in 2021, a recreation survey was distributed to the community to determine if the amenity priorities had changed since 2017. The survey results were then used as we established an amenity investment prioritization matrix. So we used a similar matrix from a couple of other communities to develop one that suited the town of Rocky Mountain House. There was 8 criterias that each of the priorities were scored on. They included cost savings through partnerships and grants, financial impact with related to operating budgets, project development costs, and you're dealing with capital costs, economic impact, stakeholder and user group preferences, recreational benefit provisions in the region, the general public preferences, which related right back to the survey results, and then alignment with expected trends and demographics and population shifts. The Recreation Board completed the matrix exercise in June and reviewed the results in September. And then, as I mentioned, these results were brought back to council at the service level review. In your package, we've included the actual amenity investment matrix, which outlines more detail on each of the 8 criteria that the various items were scored against. And then on the last page, we have the actual rankings and the results of, as we put all the priorities through the matrix. It shows at the far right of that that chart sort of where the amenities ranked in the survey results. And then some of the rankings changed as they were put through the scoring matrix. Now, I won't go through each of the items, but it does give council an opportunity. And one of the things just to note that this is a snapshot in time, right? When we did the survey, things can change as projects are brought forward, but it does give an opportunity. The council can utilize this tool when looking at new projects or those types of things that are brought forward. Does council have any particular questions related to the report that I've brought forward?
I did have a question. So obviously this was a snapshot of a year ago, and then this is the first time we've used this matrix, right? We haven't used it in the past and come up with this as something that
That's correct.
yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that's what I heard you say. And so some of the other things that could have happened is, like, it's been brought to our attention, some of the items for that need like maintenance concerns of current recreation assets or facilities. Like, for example, we had a delegation just not that long ago from the skateboard park. We already have an asset that took a large capital investment, and there's been quite a bit of, maybe not quite a bit of operational, but there is some, like, there's use to it already, right? And so how does those type of things fit in here? Like, because it's not really an expansion or a new project, right? Like a capital one, but it is definitely needs some investment to protect the asset or maintain what we already have.
Yeah, you're right. And certain amenities, use the skate park as an example. Yes, it was constructed in 2000 and it has ongoing maintenance, and it's nearing the end of its life cycle, which now going forward, when you look at the scoring matrix, where does a skate park rank in the community need? And it ranks right up there with the pump track and the mountain bike skills park with the need. And again, when it comes to budget deliberations and future planning, we would take those types of things into consideration. Yes, is it still a need? Is it still a priority in the community? Yes, we still have to maintain the asset that we have. And that's dealt with through our operating budgets. And we'll see that as we go through our budget deliberations in December, but certain things are allocated for that. Quite often this is dealing with sometimes new projects that have been identified going back to 2017. They're still there, but they haven't come to fruition yet. But it does sort of give council an idea. Yes, they're still a priority, and how do you perhaps plan to see those priorities or those projects come forward?
So how hard is it to insert, like, because it's not on the list here for outdoor? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, I see it too.
If there are new projects that come forward,
No, just like maintenance things that maybe need to be addressed. Does it get put into this or just gets put into budgeting?
No, so your worship, that would fall in our 10-year capital plan.
Okay.
So then we bring that to council every year and update it every year. But for example, the pool filters, the swimming pool is not on this list, but that ongoing maintenance goes into the 10-year capital plan.
Okay. So this is just a matrix for future projects then? or,
The projects that we put through the matrix were projects that were identified in 2017. And then when we did the survey in 2021, we asked the community, are these priorities or projects still a priority, and how do they rank them? And then at council's direction, we took it a step further and went to, what was the cost? Is there grants available, partnerships that would help bring a project like that forward? What would be the operating costs? What are the capital costs? And again, those things are all outlined. And as when you look at the report, if it's a project and there's partnerships available and there's grants available, it would score higher than something that wouldn't have partnerships or grants. And the same if the operating costs are low, it would score higher than if the operating costs are high. And that was the beauty, I guess, of the matrix and how things are scored.
okay, perfect. I was looking for my original survey this morning just to see what some of the answers were to compare to the matrix. And I'm gonna still do that because I remember going over that with the youth committee in detail. Is there any other questions for? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Did you have any other points to?
No, I guess it was just a matter of a resolution to the council accept the report as information.
Yeah. Tina, sorry, Councillor Hutchinson.
That's why.
Would you
my
like
light
to make
was
that
on.
motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So moving forward in the agenda for new business, we have an RFD for workplace discrimination, violence and harassment policy. And I see we have Mr. Schwader.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I just want to introduce Janelle Schuler. I think everyone knows who Janelle is. She's our OH&S safety coordinator for the town. And we're just in front of council today just to get a policy approved for our workplace organization within our within the town organization. So I'll let Janelle kind of talk about the policy and we'll go from there.
All right, good afternoon, your worship and council. Just a bit of information on our harassment and violence in the workplace policies. It was last updated in October of 2017, so it has been 5 years. So it did need to update. The update and refresher worker training for all staff is currently in progress and near completion. We need to be in compliance with Alberta OH&S and its current legislation. So the new policy that I drafted is in compliance with our current legislation. So what's changed is the new OH&S legislation requires that workplace violence and workplace harassment have their own separate policies. It gives further clarification and definitions of what workplace violence is and what is not considered to be workplace violence, and what workplace harassment is and what is considered not to be workplace harassment. So I've updated that, updated information on the employee assistance program as some things have changed since the last policy, and assessment of the necessity of a third-party investigation, as well as further clarification on when the policy must be reviewed. So it is now in the policy that we are to review it every 3 years. So that's about that.
I guess any questions for Janelle?
I noticed, and I should have circled it at the time, but they talk about bullying in here. But I didn't see it defined, like violence is defined and harassment's defined. Is bullying defined somewhere that's not in here? Because it's
so per the OH&S legislation, it doesn't speak to bullying. It just speaks to the harassment and the violence, and it does go further into there. So I did take out some of the bullying stuff was in there because it wasn't necessary to have it in there.
okay.
But if it's felt that there's a need for that to still be in the policy and still be included, I can absolutely re-add it.
No, it was just, there was a couple phrases. That said, or if there's bullying, but then there was no description anywhere. And so. I was just curious if that needed to be defined.
Well, per the legislation, it just speaks to harassment and violence.
Okay.
It doesn't go into the weeds with the bullying.
Okay, perfect. That was just my question. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Counselor Hutchinson,
I just lost my spot where I had seen it.
bullying.
Bullying. Was it on the clean copy? There
So,
was a section on bullying.
I was looking at the copy with the red is where I was reading it. But if it's not necessary, then I was just,
Yeah.
Counselor, or sorry, Mr. Gross.
I've been promoted.
So, I'm so sorry.
No, it's actually the third bulletin under harassing behavior can include the physical and psychological bullying that creates fear or mistrust. So where bullying isn't actually like defined, it is identified in the policy.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I saw it in the random, yeah,
Mhm.
so perfect. Counselor Boniface, did you have,
Mr. Kraut answered my question.
okay. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Miss Counselor Hutchinson, that covered yours, right? Or are you still looking for something?
No, I had found it under the last attachment on page 4. There's a big section on bullying. So that was the current. So that, all good.
Okay, all right. So then, if there's no further discussion or questions, then I think we can look for a motion. Sorry, I looked twice. You must have had it off and then on again. Counselor Hutchinson.
Be it resolved that council approve the harassment and violence in the workplace policy 007-2022 as presented.
Thank you very much. And with no further questions, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council.
Great job.
Thank you.
So moving forward in the agenda, the RFD for curbside recycling bins.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. No, thank you. So at the service level retreat, council identified that the survey coming back from our residents on the 2023 budget, a lot of it identified the request to have blue bins versus the blue bag pickup. Just so to provide some background to council, so in 2019, our waste audit identified 76% of what's going to the landfill could actually be recycled or in organics. So council did introduce the organics collection in 2021, which has been very successful. Monthly collection runs 10,000 kilograms per month in the winter, and in summer it peaks at 71,000 kilograms per month. So the curbside recycling program, which council started this year, collects about 5,000 kilograms per month from curbside pickup. So it has been successful. So it appears with the residents' request for blue bins, there'll probably be more uptake on the curbside recycling because it makes it more convenient for our residents. So administration did look into the cost for the blue bin or blue tote, which is being presented to council today. There are two sizes of it. One is a 360 liter bin, which is I think 50% bigger than our current waste and organic bins, and I think weighs 3 kilograms heavier. But with recycling being more bulkier than organics or waste, it would probably be an appropriate size. There is a smaller 240 liter bin, which is the same size as our current organics and waste. So administration is recommending going to the 360 liter bin. The cost of that is $223,535. So we are recommending that council put that in their 2023 budget for consideration. When we did consult with the suppliers, the
ETA.
ETA, thank you very much, Your Worship. It's shorter than was with the green bins, I mean, which was 8 months, so it's looking like 4 months once we order the blue bins. Logistically, we would order them for when the ice is out of the rink, because we need a place to assemble the bins and sort and whatever. So we'd be looking for like an April type of delivery date and have them out in late April or May. So if it goes into the 2023 budget, we can order them as soon as council passes the budget, which would provide us with that 4 months in that time frame for assembly.
I had a question about the sales money that we're getting back. And because I just want, it's clear that we're not going to be putting this as a tax. You know, this is money that we have already in savings, say. And so my question was, the original money that was spent on the sales from the Waste Authority, was it a grant or did we debenture that? And if we debentured it, is it already paid for? Because it was a capital investment in the Waste Authority, right?
Yeah, we did not debenture anything for the Waste Authority,
Okay.
so.
An easy question. I was thinking about it and that was that, I never did ask that question before, so the money for these bins will come from the Waste Authority dissolution.
Yeah, so the Waste Authority dissolution, we just wrapped that up with the county. That was so $4 million will be coming to the town. $1 million will be put aside for post-closure liability because we still have a stake in the past sales. And $3 million will be bringing to council for council to determine where those funds go into reserves. So, but in a draft budget being council, it'd be those funds that paid for these cards.
Go ahead, Councillor Caprio, and then I'll do Councillor Phillips.
I just wanted to say, I like the thought of the bigger blue bin, the 360 liter, having a family of 5. There's weeks we put 4 or 5 bags out for recycling. So just especially for those larger families, I think it would be best to go with that bigger size.
Councillor Phillips.
So I know, I mean, waste has obviously been a very contentious topic of lately in town. It's nice to see that the residents are actually making recycling work. You know, the bags that we're using now was to see if that could happen. Obviously it's happening. I too like the 360 liter size, just simply because the recycling is the bulk. You know, the green bins are more weight, but the recycling part is bulky. So I think the 360 liter size would definitely be the one. And it's also nice that we're not spending any additional dollars on this. This is dollars that are coming into us from the dissolution of the Waste Authority. So it's nice that this isn't going to be an extra cost. And, you know, just seeing the original Son of Era report back in 2018 or whenever that was, it's nice to see that report and the recommendations coming to life finally.
Councillor Alt.
I just agree with Len, and with that report from Son of Era, they did note that majority of it was recycling. So the residents that I've spoken to, they all like the program, but the one complaint has been that they wish it was in the bins. And this is a win-win, I believe. So I'm in favor of going with the bigger 360 liter bins.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Personally, I would like to keep everything the same size. That's just personally because I like that uniformed look in my driveway. So I would agree with either way, but that has been one of the biggest concerns is having the blue bin and not using the bags. So I'm either way on that.
Councillor Boniface.
I would like us to go to the bigger bins.
Okay. So if there's no more other comments, I just have mine, well, I agree the blue bins are beneficial and they won't impact the 2023 taxes as they're going to be funded from the previous waste authority partnership from the landfill sales. But I feel the same size standard, 240 liter would be better for our citizens because 6.5 pounds heavier, empty through snow down your sidewalk or along trail. I mean, it's quite bulky even for myself to push our regular bins out empty or full. And so I think making it another 6.5 or just about, well, there'd be 6.5, 3 kilograms heavier is a little bit bulky. Just, and also we have to consider the size of where you're going to store that. Like some people, like according to our current regulations that Ms. Button and I were talking over with Mr. Kraus, they have to be up away from your house. They can't be curbside. They can't be left. They have to be in certain areas. And so you're going to have to be moving those. And so that's my feeling about keeping the same size of bins. And a bin will hold a lot more than just a plastic bag. So if you're putting 4 bags out, 4 bags of garbage will fit in one of those black bags. Bins, right? So if you're doing 4 bags of recycling, it should still fit in the same size, like Councillor Hutchinson said, because we're going to have to find a place as citizens, and not only us, but like duplexes, threeplexes, all, tiny lot homes, some of the smaller footprinted homes have to find a place to store those bins. I know that the city of Red Deer has all 3 the same size. Because you can see them on the way to the Collicut, all stacked up in those on the side. So that's all I want to say for my portion.
Your worship, I mean, one of the options being presented to council is you can actually give the residents a choice. I mean, it takes a lot more logistics to sort that out. And plus we would have to know that amount before ordering, obviously. But if council wishes, it could be the 360 tote is the standard. And then we can actually send out a mailer, I guess, if council wants to go down this path. And if you respond, they want a smaller tote by a certain date before we order, that could be feasible. But it just takes a lot more logistics on, I guess, on our side to do that. But that would provide the choice to residents.
Councillor Hutchinson, do you like that idea?
Yeah, and it's no different on the truck, whether it's the bigger one or the smaller one. So it's feasible that way. Just as long as what do we do if we only get back 1,000 responses? Then do we just give everybody
The bigger one.
the next size?
Is that correct? You would just say that standard is the bigger one and anybody who would like the smaller one has to fill out a form? Or
Yeah, we'd have to work out the logistic, but something like that, a form that they want a smaller one, but it also have to be an understanding it's not a less of a cost for us if you have a smaller tote. So the monthly fee would stay the same regardless
right,
of size.
you just have a smaller tin to try and house during the week. There's no credit to your utilities.
My only concern with that is houses are consistently changing over, and you have a new owner and an old owner, and maybe the old owner wants a 240 liter bin and now the new owner wants a 360 liter bin. We're probably not going to have amounts of these on hand as extras. How would we handle that if people decide they get a 240 liter bin and say, this isn't working, I need a 360? How would that work?
Yeah, your worship. So that would be only by availability. Like we do not stockpile like a huge amount. So.
Well, I like the idea of having the residents decide, Councillor Hutchinson.
Would it be helpful to say, however we go about doing this, that if we don't have X amount of number respond to the smaller bins, I'll just go with the bigger bins.
Well, we're going to go with the bigger bins anyways, right?
But just to uncomplicate things, if we don't get, what if we only get 20 people say they want the smaller bin.
I see.
And that just makes for extra work. So would it be wise to have a minimum amount needed before we went through with that, or is that something in the?
I like keeping things
Logistics.
simple. Either you want the smaller bin or you don't, and then just see where our numbers are at. Trying to complicate it with more information and minimums and stuff. Because it doesn't really matter. We just order however many we need, right? Yes. Yes, so we just order whatever we need. There's no cost break that we have to have a minimum of 50, right? Or that's maybe not available at this time.
Yeah, that's a good question, your worship, and I would have to verify that if there is a minimum. Because they are imprinted with our logo and so forth, so.
Counselor Ald,
And for administration, if residents choose not to go down that road with the blue bins, they still have the option just to recycle at the waste people. So they can
That's correct.
refuse the, if they don't want the third bin, they can refuse it.
That's correct, and they can just. They still have free access to the Eco Center for recycling.
and it doesn't change your monthly rate, whether you have a bin or you don't have a bin,
No, it does
correct?
not. That's correct.
So would we send out a letter ahead saying no bin, small bin, otherwise everybody's gonna get a bin?
So we would distribute all, yeah, everyone will get a bin. but- Or I guess they can opt out for a bin.
Well, as to
Yeah.
Counselor Ald's point there, when we sent out a survey or whatnot, we could say everyone's gonna get this size of bin unless you click that you would like the smaller bin or no bin at all. Because people click that they don't want a bin at all, then it saves that investment for the time being until they.
We would probably still order enough bins for every household, regardless if they didn't want it. So we, just like as Councillor Phillips says, if a new resident moves in there, then we need that bin. So
Does that answer enough of your questions, Counselor Ald? Counselor Phillips,
Just the only question is if we do the choice, if someone wants the 240 or 360 or no bin, can we do that in a timely fashion that will still allow us to get these bins, in April?
Administration will probably have to move on it fairly quick, either with part of the utility billing for December, I would guess, because November's out. With a form or an online form also, and ask for the response by
January 10th or something?
Mid-January.
I feel satisfied with that discussion. Is there any further questions or comments on that? Would someone like to make a resolution? Counselor
Okay.
Phillips,
So this is obviously going to be a little bit different from the recommended alternatives. So I'll make a motion that council approves the purchase of a combination of 360 liter bins and 240 liter bins based on the survey results we get back from the public for an amount up to $223,535.
For so this would be in our 2023 budget.
For the 2023 budget, yes.
any discussion on that motion? Okay, so I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So I believe we'll just have a brief 10-minute recess at this point. So we'll meet back in 10 minutes. Back to order from our brief recess. It's November 15th of 2022, and this is the continuation of the regular council meeting. Going forward on our agenda, we have 7.3, which is an addition, and it's about the Japan Twin City Kamikawa upcoming event. Counselor Phillips.
So myself and Counselor Hutchinson attended the Kamikawa Society meeting last week. And one of the reasons we wanted to go there was to get the information on what's happening with that 2024 AGTMA conference. So it's the 40th anniversary of the twinning. And so basically what the Kamikawa Society is suggesting is that the town of Rocky Mountain House admin would organize and set up the event, and their society would assist us with, with information and protocol and things that we need to make the conference successful. So that is what they're looking for, is to have the town of Rocky Mountain House spearhead the conference.
And do they have dates for that?
They do not have dates yet. That would be the town that would decide that.
Counselor Hutchinson.
So just to kind of give a kind of an overview, they kind of talked about a day and a half thing. So if it was a Friday, it would be a dinner greeting type thing. And then on the Saturday would be maybe some workshops, maybe some presenters, and then their regular AGM meeting would be following all of that. So it would be a dinner one night and some type of a, either a lunch, something in between them on the next day.
Oh, sorry, Counselor Alt.
We hosted this in the past, quite a few years ago, 2014.
2014 was the last time it was held in Rocky Mountain House.
I don't think it's a whole lot of time for admin. I don't think. I think it's definitely something we should get behind and get involved in. As long as it's not going to be too onerous on admin.
Is that similar to what you went to when we were at FCM? Because you attended that one.
That's right. I attended the conference in Tabor and AGM on behalf of council. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. I wrote about it and would have been in my June report. I actually reached out to my colleague in Tabor to ask her her experience of it. The town of Tabor actually budgeted $20,000 for hosting. They spent about half that. They did have low attendance, which contributed to the lower budget. And but they also, what did she say? I just pulled up the email. They had really nice like gift bags for all attendees. I brought it back, and Mayor, I know you took some and shared them out. Yes,
I distributed it.
But she said they admit that they were competitive and they wanted to really wow their attendees. She felt a $20,000 budget was high and it could be done for less. But there is the attendance factor that if the conference here drew more people, it's a consideration. Yeah, there are registration fees for the conference. It was nominal. Yeah, I haven't actually shared all this info with Mr. Krause yet, so he doesn't know how much work it is.
And then what's the number of people that we anticipate? Did they say that at the?
I think they had said the last one was only about 60, 70 people. And then I had pulled up, Barhead had hosted in 2019, and I had an agenda of what they had done. But I forgot that at home, so I can't share that with you. But I don't think it would be more than 80 to 100 people.
Tabor
max.
budgeted 20,000 based on 75 people attend.
I think this is a good way, not only to showcase the twinning that we, the twinning agreement we have with Kamakawa, but it's a great way to promote Rocky Mountain House. To have other communities come here and dignitaries and show them what we have to offer, and then they can go back to their towns and let everybody know how good Rocky Mountain House is and how well we host events. So I definitely think it's something that we should most definitely at least pursue forward and have admin bring back budgets and dollars and cents. One other item that was also brought up at that meeting is right now in Japan, there is no exchange program because of COVID. The restrictions in Japan right now are quite a bit more stringent than they are in Canada. And so basically there is no exchange program for the students right now. One thing that was brought up is that there may be a little bit of consideration if council was to write a letter to the Council of Kamakawa, just reiterating the fact that we have a strong tie together, we have a good program, that we would like to see it continue. Is there a way that they can perhaps assist us and assist in the way of them talking with the Japanese government and see if there's a way that we can make the exchange program happen? That was just a suggestion that may help further the kids being able to do the exchange program.
Do we know if there's been a new consul assigned from Japan to Alberta again yet? Because that he did his farewell thing and was moving. Do we know if there's been a new? How do we find that out?
Your worship, they generally notify us, so we haven't received any notification.
Okay. It'd be handy if there was one back in, assigned back in. Is there? Okay.
Very newly on the job as of October 24th.
Yeah, okay. So I'm in total favor of hosting this. I think it's an excellent way to showcase our community for relatively low dollars. We spend more on that on tourism ads and in periodicals and things like that. So I think we should have I think it's I'm really glad that you both went and got the information and that we could move forward with something that's so good for our whole community. Yeah. I also would think that maybe we could send a letter not only to the Kamakawa, but also to the Japanese consulate saying that we're welcome to Canada and we're looking forward to, we're a twin city and, some sort of a greeting. Would that be appropriate, do you think? To the new Japanese consul? Yeah. Or do we wait for them to contact us? Yeah, I think that would be, and then when we send this letter to, do we agree that we should send the letter to support? Was there specific things that they wanted that you could,
Are you talking about the exchange program?
the letter that they're recommending that we that we send from our council to their council?
They were just suggesting that. I don't have that on. They were just suggesting that it may hold some weight if our council was to write a letter directly to their council and just impress the fact of how well we have worked together in the past, how our twinning has really helped both communities drastically over the years, and to ask them if there's something that they can do to help reopen that exchange program again. Because right now there's kids and money there, but they're just not allowed to go.
Does that give you enough information for administration to formulate a letter on our behalf?
Yeah, does, your worship.
Okay.
But I think council's looking at 3 resolutions here.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we got all the information before we start banging away resolutions. Is that correct? Yeah. So would you like to make the first resolution?
I'll make the first resolution that the town of Rocky Mountain House organizes and puts together the event for the 40th anniversary in 2024 for the AJTMA conference.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So then there's a second motion, and I'll make that motion about writing a letter, administration writing a letter to the new Japanese consul general. Sometimes they're, yes, consul general, just welcoming him to Canada and expressing that we are a twin city with Kamakawa. And please come visit, you know, or whatever, open an invitation. Does that sound? Yeah. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor of that? And that's carried. So then we need a third motion. Councillor Phillips, did you want to make that for the Council of Kamakawa?
Sure. I'll make a motion that the town of Rockingham Mountain House sends a letter to the mayor and council of Kamakawa, Japan. Just stating the fact of our longstanding history and the rich history that we have, and asking if there's some way that they can make the exchange program happen again.
Would we also want to include that we're planning on having a conference in 2024?
That'd probably be a good thing to add into that letter as well. Yes. And yes, invite them as well.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Great. Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, I have 7.4 with Councillor Hutchinson, briefing notes for a new council member.
Just as this will be our last meeting before we have a new counselor, I just felt that it would be a good idea to have a resolution to instruct admin to prepare briefing notes on previous closed session items to present to the new counselors, so that when it's in a resolution, then we can bring closed items back into more closed items, but for discussion for all of council.
Is there any discussion on that item? And is that open to everything, or administration is aware of what items need to be addressed?
Your worship, I'm just understanding from the resolution is prepare a briefing note of the past closed session items and what they were pertaining to.
Is that generally what we have to do with a new council member?
We would bring them up to speed on the
Okay.
relevant.
Yeah, I would think, you know, briefing notes and probably all the, you know, the original documents associated with it, so they can look at documents as well. There's been so much information that we've had even in the last year that it's just nice to bring them up to speed. It's kind of overwhelming at times, but just to have them brought up to speed, so when we do talk about topics, they have some understanding of what's going on.
Just clarify how far back is.
Anything of relevance that's still ongoing? Does that make sense?
Does that give you enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and so, I'm sorry, was that a motion?
Yes.
No
Okay.
further
Do you want me to kind of repeat it?
I think so.
Okay, that council instructed Min to prepare a briefing note on previous closed session items to present to the new counselor.
I'm just making sure that Mr. Kraus thinks that that's enough words in there. All in favor of that item? And that's carried. Okay, so correspondence, moving forward, correspondence for action, 8.1, invitation from Rocky Whirlways for Platinum Anniversary event. So they're looking for someone to speak at their event. Or, yes. So this was forwarded. The event is Sunday, December 11th at 5 p.m. Counselor Alt.
December 11th, I am in some meetings that weekend in Calgary.
So you're not able to attend? So Deputy Mayor cannot attend on that day. Is there someone else that would like to attend in his behalf? Councillor Hutchinson?
Yes, I'm available that day if anybody else wants to be my other.
Okay.
But if not, then I could certainly attend.
Okay, and this is just a normal PR event. So administration can reply that Council Hutchinson would attend that. Do you need a resolution for that, or is that just? Councillor Phillips.
I'll make a motion that Councillor Hutchinson attend the Rocky Whirlways event on Sunday, December 11th.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, number 9, correspondence for information. Is there anything from 9.1 to 9.8 that anyone would like to discuss? Councillor Phillips.
Sorry, on item 9.4, I sit on the Parkland Regional Library Board, the board and the executive as well. And there's letters here that have been coming from different municipalities regarding the population numbers that are being used for the Parkland Regional Library Board budgets. Currently, they're using the Treasury Board numbers. And some of the municipalities are saying that they should be using the municipal affairs numbers. But municipal affairs numbers are still from 2016. The Treasury Board numbers are more current, not as current as the new census, but that's not the number we generally use. The problem is the province is not really telling us which numbers. Typically we use the municipal affair numbers as population. Our population numbers. It was chosen to use the Treasury Board numbers for Parkland Regional Library Board's budgets because that was the most recent and up-to-date numbers. But there has been a few municipalities that have been saying that they want them to look at the way that the bylaws say that they use the numbers and go back to the municipal affairs numbers. So that's in essence what item 9.4 is about. There's some that are saying that they should be using municipal affair numbers as opposed to Treasury Board numbers.
And so you're bringing this to our attention just so that we know what the letter is about, or because you want to move it into an action item?
I don't want to move it into an action item, but it is becoming there's a little bit of a groundswell going on there, and for Parkland Regional Library Board's budget to be approved, it has to be approved by 2/3 of the membership, and this may or may not affect that. I guess only time will tell, but it's just more of a heads up so that everybody's understanding what potentially could happen there.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. Is there any other letters that anybody would like to bring to our attention from 9.1 to 9.8? Councillor Boniface.
9.8, the letter from the Rocky Taxpayer Association. Are we acknowledging the letter and providing the information that has been requested? What is happening there, please?
So I think Mr. Coase, would you like to, because we discussed that this morning.
Yeah, Your Worship, I can respond to that. So we did respond to the Taxpayers Association. We gave them links to our website where a lot of the documents they requested are available on the website. Some of the documentation that they requested would actually have to go through a FOIP request, and we advised them of that. So there's a test for what we publicly just give out and what has to go through a FOIP request. If it's available on the website, then it's available already. You can get it, easily. Or be legislated to give it, such as assessment role, then we would just give it out if we're legislated to do that. But if it doesn't meet those two criterias, then it has to go through a FOIP request. And the purposes of that is just because it's going to take or consume considerable, administrative time. So that process is through the Freedom of Information Protection Act. And they require that, they just go through that process. It's not that the information won't be provided to them, but they have to go through a process and pay a fee for it.
Thank you.
Covers administration, photocopying costs and time to give the information. Well, it doesn't quite cover anything, but
No.
that's the idea behind it. Is that correct? Did we want to have any more discussion on any of the other items? Okay, so I guess I'm looking for a motion to accept for information. Councillor Hutchinson.
I'll make the motion to accept 9.1 through to 9.8 for information.
Thank you very much. Seeing as there's no further discussion on that item, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor? And that's carried. So we're moving down to 10.1, the CAO report.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. So just highlights out of the report. So as per the service level review, council asked administration to contact Alberta Health Services in regards to a social worker in our community. We've done that, and I've talked to Mr. Swanson. Just so council's aware, he's advised that AHS does have a social worker in the hospital, but only works through clients with acute care or home care through the hospital. But they're very interested in exploring a second social worker within the community, perhaps in partnership with the PCN. So Mr. Ament and his staff will be meeting with Alberta Health Services to see what that looks like. And once we have that explored, we'll bring it back to council. Attended a police committee meeting. The committee has asked for a report on charging for criminal record checks at the request of Staff Sergeant Dinsdale. So administration is preparing that report. This was an item brought up a few years ago also. Just to recoup some costs there and perhaps even reduce some of the criminal record check requests, because quite often people will request them but never pick them up. So we'll bring that report back to the policing committee, and then the committee will make a recommendation to bring it to council or not. I did have a meeting of Social Society of Local Government Managers. It was just CAOs we were getting together, and what was interesting with that one is how some municipalities are trying to figure out, with reduced granting from the province, to pay for major infrastructure projects or infrastructure projects in general. And a lot of municipalities are going back or looking or revisiting a local improvement program, which we haven't done here in quite some time. So it'll be interesting to see what other municipalities do in that aspect.
Is that where you do
Frontage, and then it goes on to the benefiting landowners' property taxes. But it just shows, the effect of the reduced provincial grant funding for those types of projects. For legislative services, the key one right now is by-election, where the focus is. And I think we are all set for next Monday for communicate. Thursday,
Early
yes.
poll, is that what it's called? Early poll?
Advanced poll.
Advanced poll. And the advanced poll is going to be at the Legion as well? They're both at the rec center, at the ice rink.
The subway room at the Rocky Regional Recreation
Okay.
Center.
Why did because the
Forum
was at the Legion, sorry.
Um,
I'm sure I'm gonna get asked where to vote. Better be clear on it.
For communications, so Ms. Button attended the Recycling Council of Alberta conference, and she's provided a very detailed report attached for council to see what it's all about. Of course, a lot of our time has been putting together the financial report also with our finance department, which is now posted on our website, and council was distributed a copy today. not part of communications, well, part of communications, but Miss Button is our information officer for emergencies, and she's also part of the it's Central Region All Hazard Incident Management Team. So that's elevated training, and plus it's an organization we belong to. We have an emergency and it goes on for a period of time. We can call in people from other municipalities to assist. So we participate in that program. She's also busy with the by-election as our deputy returning officer.
Substitute,
Pardon me?
substitute,
Substitute.
returning officer.
Substitute.
I really want to highlight that we hosted the climate training here last week for 3 days. And had report says 35, but it was over 40 municipal emergency managers from across Alberta. Some municipal, some provincial staff here for 3 days, and it was very well received to be in our facility and in our town.
For airport, just normal duties, clearing snow last weekend, out the runway, but other than that, it's just business as usual. And Mr. Lindsay is also collecting stats on landings and so forth, which is vital to us because we cannot get a grant for the airport unless we can show the movements out at the airport. So he submits them now actually to Alberta Transportation. We'll be doing it on an annual basis because those grants are totally dependent on how busy your airport is compared to other grant applications. And I think that is it.
Councillor Hutchinson.
I just wanted to say to Laura, I really appreciate her report from the Circular Economy Conference. And what I really wanted to add in there was how in her report, she put, how does this apply / what can we do in Rocky Mountain House on it? And I guess having said that, something for council to keep in the back of their minds when we're doing our reports, to kind of take that idea and when we've had conferences, put it into those terms so that we can explain more to our constituents. And thank you for the report too.
Well, I really like that it gives our residents ideas how to reduce their waste, because obviously it's a hot topic and it's nice to give them some tips on what to do, right? Not just for our council to write better reports, but just for our citizens and in general to have improved quality of life. Councillor Boniface.
Question for Mr. Kraus on his report here. I'm reading the using of local improvement levies for more infrastructure upgrades. Could you clarify that a little bit for me, please?
So basically, if we're like repaving a street, we're up to, historically for a long time, we've just been using grant money to pay for those upgrades to that street. So with a local improvement, we would take the cost of like repaving a street and we would allocate those costs to the benefiting landowners, and they would pay through their taxes, through a local improvement tax. It's sometimes it's 100% if it's only the residents that benefit from it and not the general population. A laneway paving is probably a good example of that. But otherwise, council determines how much benefits the adjoining landowner and the municipality as a whole, and then would perhaps 30% would be paid by the adjoining landowner and 70% through municipal taxes.
Thank you very much.
And that's because MIS.
MSI funding has been dramatically reduced.
But before it was changed, it was dropped 25% and then changed to LGFF.
Yes, so we still have MSI for this year, or 2023, and LGFF will kick in for 2024, but the province still has not determined the funding model for that.
Has the AM sent back another request for more information? Because I think that the AM and the RMA couldn't come to agreement on the LGFF when I was at the thing. Have they sent more?
Yeah, actually today, your worship AM sent out an email, looking for, it's a webinar on where they're standing with the LGFF. I think that webinar is November 23rd and 24th, for council, to sign up.
So the questions I had. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Good.
Councillor Hutchinson, would you like to make the motion?
I would. I'll make the motion that we accept the CA report for November 15th as information.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So now moving forward, we have department reports 10.2 corporate services.
Good afternoon, your worship and council. Mine's short, but it's very lengthy. Basically, the entire month's been spent finalizing the budget. So we've had meetings and just reviewing everything. And right now I'm in the process of finalizing the document and putting it all together. So it will soon be ready. Is there any questions?
I don't see any today. Thank you very much for your report.
Okay, thank you.
So moving forward, we have a report from Recreation and Community Services.
Good afternoon once again. Not a lot to add to my written report. Again, I'm working hard with Betty and Graham on finalizing our budgets and those types of things. Yeah, we've applied for a small enabling accessibility grant to help fund the purchase of a new lift for the pool. And we'll see how that comes out by the end of the year. Arena operations going full steam ahead with the ice use and that everything is back into full swing. Cross training some of our facility attendants on using the Olympia, and actually one of our attendants is going to be acting operator tomorrow night, so it'll be her first shift out there in full control of making sure the ice is maintained for our users. So that's good that we can cross train some of our staff that way. They've finished doing some repair work for the outdoor rink. We were anticipating, well, maybe do we or not, but we've decided the weather's not quite going to allow us to get out there and make ice yet. So, but we were contemplating that. FCSS, Andrea has provided a fairly lengthy synopsis of what they're up to. If you have any questions related to that. Guest services, Lisa's provided some stats and the admissions and those types of things. We've introduced a PD day activities, sort of a spin-off of our summer day camp program. Our coordinator is still with us as one of our guest services clerks. So we've had full participants registered for our first PD day, camp. A couple of things, just community partnerships that we've got going on. One with Alberta Health, Alberta Healthy Living. It's a supervised exercise program, and a Breathe Easy program. So the staff from AHS come in and do some training, and then they sort of walk some of their participants through the use of our fitness equipment, and then they do that for several weeks, and then this is the second year that we've done that, and it's led to them purchasing memberships and continuing on with their wellness journey, right? And then we also partnered with the Kinettes for their Halloween games and ghouls on October 31st. And the reports we got from the Kinettes is that they were out scouring the town for more candy because they had really good participation there. Also been working with our recreation service manager on updating our sponsorship package. We'll be getting that updated document on our website here right away, as well as our rental package for the North Sketchway Park as part of the service level or actually it was the strategic planning documents that were requested. So we're really close. We're just tracking down some current or new pictures to use in that document. And then our pool is busy as well. They had a very successful dive-in Halloween movie on October 30th or the 29th, sold out event, very successful. And they've managed to secure some sponsors for monthly swims. So we'll have free swims once a month, all sponsored by local businesses. So that's been successful from our pool manager. And unless there's any other questions that council may have.
I had a question. I had a hockey parent ask me about a change room policy for hockey teams because they were asked or they were told they could no longer use the change room and had to change in the outside, like they were changing in the common area.
We've had a couple of incidents this year where teams have left the dressing room in a very, let's say they didn't do a good job of cleaning up after themselves. So
Okay,
in our unacceptable behavior policy, we took away their privileges for using the dressing room for a period of 1 week. And just to get the message across to them that this is not how you treat our facilities.
okay,
And yes, it resulted in them coming to the arena dressed in their gear, go onto the players' bench, put their skates on and do that. So yeah, we've had some feedback on that.
okay.
But that was why we went that route. It was following our policy that we have for unacceptable behavior.
Do we give like a checklist of guidelines to every team?
It's referred to at our ICE user meeting every year, and we rely on those organizations to spread the word to their users.
Okay,
One of the things that we are contemplating is bringing in an additional cleaning fee, which will be passed on to the organizations, but that's a budget discussion.
so was it clear to that team or teams what the like the minimum expectations are?
Our arena manager has gone over that with each of the teams, yes.
Okay, all right. Cool. I'd never heard of a policy, and when they asked me about it, I said I would inquire
Yeah.
because there's two sides to every story. And so, has there been further issues then
You know
following
what?
that?
They learn once and they learn quickly, and we haven't had any other issues.
Okay. Do you think that a warning letter would be appropriate in the future rather than just like, or do you think?
No,
No?
I think we've given them plenty of warnings.
Okay.
Last year we did more warnings. This year we've taken action.
Okay, no, I was just had a complaint, pretty excited fella. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I've received a couple of calls myself, and
Okay,
once I explained the reasoning behind it and the action, and we're following our policy on the unacceptable behavior. And
so is that posted anywhere inside that dressing room?
there's signs all over, it was relating to spitting in our dressing rooms, and there's signs everywhere dealing
Okay.
with no spitting.
Okay,
And it's our staff, and certainly, with the COVID and those types of things, it's not something that we want to, and it's up to the teams to, patrol themselves and hold their teammates accountable.
okay. And then is there supplies for them to clean if they've made a mess
Yeah.
before they leave?
All they have to do is come and ask their attendants, and they can.
Okay,
provide
and
them
that's all clear to them now?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. That answers all my questions.
Just-
Counselor Phillips?
Just further to your question, it's very well explained at the ICE user meetings, the conditions of the dressing room and what's expected of the different ICE users groups. So it's very well explained.
Yeah, I'm sure it was one parent that didn't make that meeting who I'm just asking the question because I wasn't at the ICE parent meeting. So perfect. That's great.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Schwader.
Just a quick review of my department, Clean Energy Improvement Program, kind of winding down for the year in regards to applications, but my senior development officer is still busy taking inquiries from other communities in our best practices. Planning and development, 3 subdivisions are coming to MPC. We are catching up on our enforcement letters to residents and conversations in regards to them not following bylaws. So there's a few violations that were infractions that we're following up on with residents. Busy with the 2023 budget review. I think we're all good with Betty. This morning, we held our MPC organizational and orientation meeting with our new members and council. In ECDev, our EDO is working with the consultants for the Cowboy Trail and David Thompson Country Tourism Destination Zones. Town Country co-hosted a tourism business forum last week. I believe it was quite successful as far as attendees for that event. I think there was some worthwhile information that the operators received. Also, our EDO is still involved this year in regards to the Passport to Christmas. I do believe there's 70 merchants involved. I think there's 6 from the county region as well that that's participating this year as well. Health and safety, OH&S continues to assign courses to staff to take. 3rd quarter formal inspections were completed through the community for our buildings, as well as we held on November 3rd a staff appreciation luncheon for doing well on our audit score for 2022. Protective services, 60 files for October. Some joint effort between some of the other agencies within our community. Our new hiree for our CPO has been designated by SolGen. He will be on probation for a while, working with our existing officers to learn how to do things properly when he's on the road. So that will be taking place for the next couple of months. Officers participated in a trick or treat on Main Street this year. It was well received by the public. They had a lot of questions to ask of them when they're on the street as well. And of course, sidewalk snow removal. If public is listening, please shovel your sidewalks. We are starting to get some complaints coming in with thaw freeze happening with the weather. So officers are busy following up on the inquiries regarding snow removal. Any questions?
Do we have a snow angel program in Rocky? Like Sylvan Lake has a thing where you can sign up and say, I'd like to volunteer, or I need help, or so-and-so needs help.
I do believe FCSS looks after that. And I think Rebecca actually seen something on Facebook in regards to if you want to be a snow angel, just call them and they'll arrange that.
Okay.
Through FCSS.
Yeah, because I think that's a great program that would alleviate some of your officers' work if people just jumped in and did that ahead of time. Thank you very much. Moving to engineering and operations.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Kraus?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So I think I just want to start off thanking our crew for snow removal in the past week. Just to let council know that to date, they've hauled over 600 tandem loads of snow off our streets. They're 3/4 of the way through town. And in the meantime, they fixed a water main break. So they've done an awesome job, and I think in the past week. So that was probably the major focus for them, besides their regular duties in the past month. Just let council know the water treatment membranes that was approved by council are en route. Got misshipped to Rocky View County for some reason, but are now en route for here. So, and probably another major thing is the Trapper Creek ditch is going to be completed by the end of the month. So that'll alleviate or eliminate any flooding of 54th Street come spring. So if council has any questions, I will try to answer them for Mr. Shanks.
Councillor Hutchinson.
So I see that lights for the tree was ordered. Is there any idea if they'll be up by the parade weekend?
Your Worship, I'll have to verify that. I know they're trying. I'll have to verify it.
Any other questions for engineering operations? Seeing none. Thank you very much for the report. So I'm looking for a motion. Counselor Caprero,
I will make a motion to accept 10.2 department reports for information.
thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So 11.1, the action list. Mr. Kraus,
Thank you, your worship. I don't think I can provide much of an update on anything. Everything seems to be in action and staff are on it. So if council has any specific questions.
seeing none, thank you very much for your report or for the action list. So we'll need a motion to accept the action list. Counselor Hutchinson,
I'll make a motion to accept the action list for November 15th, 2022 as presented.
this has to say for information, if that's good. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, do we have any administrative inquiries? Seeing none, do we have any notices of motion? Seeing none. So closed session 14.1. So before we go to that item, I'll just take a brief 5-minute recess.